The top business stories live from the Sky newsroom. Government borrowing comes in higher than expected, fuelled by surging debt costs. Full speed ahead, F1 breaks both sport and box office records. We'll be speaking to the team catching up to the frontrunners. Plus, why working from home could risk the possibility of drug abuse and alcoholism. Very good afternoon and welcome to Business Live here on Sky News with me, Darren McCaffrey, on this Tuesday afternoon. Just also to say that we are waiting for the Filipino Prime Minister, or President, I should say, to arrive at the White House in the next couple of minutes. We're expecting the usual news conference inside the Oval Office, and we will, of course, bring you that here on Sky as soon as it begins. But first, the UK government borrowed a higher than expected £20.7 billion in June, fuelled by surging debt costs as the Chancellor Rachel Reeves struggles with weak economic growth and her own fiscal rules. The shortfall between government income and spending was £6.6 billion more than in June of last year and higher than the £17.1 billion forecast for June of this year by the UK's fiscal watchdog, the OBR. Well, Sky's business and economic correspondent Gurpreet Narwan has all the figures for us, and yet again, this is bad news for the Chancellor.
That's bad news indeed. You know, whether it's data on jobs, on economic growth, or data on inflation, the bad news just keeps on coming for Rachel Reeves. And today, it was the public finances. As you said, the ONS published figures showing that in the month of June, the government borrowed £20.7 billion. That was £3.5 billion more than the Office for Budget Responsibility had forecast. And you might be wondering, why is borrowing surging when the government has already ratcheted up taxes? We had the big increase in business taxes in the autumn budget. And while the tax receipts did rise, it was simply not enough to offset the increase in expenditure. And as you pointed out, the increase in expenditure was driven by rising or higher debt interest payments on the government's debt. Those figures came in at £16.4 billion. So this is how much we spent on servicing government debt in the month of June, £16.4 billion. That was £2.4 billion more than the OBR was forecasting. And that's partly driven by the fact that inflation is rising. A quarter of our debt is linked to the RPI index. And as Andrew Bailey was telling MPs today, this is also partly driven by a rise in bond yields, long-dated bond yields across Western economies. He said that that was driven by a lot of geopolitical uncertainty, especially relating to trade. So we can see here that this is a bit of a headache for the Chancellor. Our debt, our government debt, the size of it has ballooned, as we know, since the pandemic. It now sits about £3 trillion. That's 96% of GDP, or if you're using the Chancellor's preferred metric, that's public sector net financial liabilities, so taking into things like equity stakes in companies or student loans, well, then it's 83.8% of GDP. But nevertheless, whichever measure you're looking at, the government is spending about 8% of the public purse. So 8% of public spending is going on servicing debt. And the fact that debt servicing costs are overshooting the OBR's expectations and that government borrowing is overshooting the OBR's expectations mean that it's increasingly likely that the Chancellor is going to have to raise taxes if she wants to meet her fiscal rules.
OK, Gurpreet Narwan, thank you. As always, they're live for us in central London with those borrowing figures from the government. Not good news indeed for the Chancellor. Now, let's talk about F1, because we're about halfway through the 2025 F1 season, with the Belgium Grand Prix taking place this weekend. Motorsport has been also seen a pretty stellar performance at the box office, with the new Brad Pitt film, looking to surpass $400 million this weekend. Well, one dark horse that's been catching up with all of this is Atlassian's Williams racing team, whose principal is determined to get the team back in front, and delighted to say we can speak to the team principal, James Vows, who joins us live from central London. James, very good afternoon to you. First of all, we should also say congratulations. I see you've signed a new contract with Williams. What's prompted that?
Yeah, good afternoon. What prompted it is I've been in the team for a couple of years now, 2.5 years or so, and really there's a period of time where myself and the investors got to know each other, made sure that we're doing the right things in order to bring this giant. So Williams is still a top 3, even now, of our sport, back to the front. And really that clicked over the last 2.5 years, and we're at the stage of this where we shake hands and go, are we here to win world championships? And if so, let's make that bond correct, and I'll commit my future here and do the same in return. So the commitment was really from me and from the investors that we're here to win world championships. We're on a good pathway, and this is the time to cement it.
And what do you feel, in many ways, James, has kind of held you guys back a little bit over the last couple of years? And what are you seeing, and what would you like to see change so that you do end up back in pole position again, if you like?
Yeah, good pun.
I'm here all day for them.
Good. I'll call on you later. I'm sure that I hope there'll be a few more. The main thing is this. I mean, Williams just presenting it to the world. It was established in 1977, and even today, it's the 3rd or top 3 most successful teams in the sport. It's only Ferrari and McLaren that are really above it. We've got 9 constructors' world championships to our name and 7 drivers' championships. It was in the 80s and certainly the 90s the team to effectively beat, and truthfully it's what really pulled on my heartstrings. It was the team that I started to follow and inspired me to get into the sport. There's a but. Obviously we haven't won for over 2 decades, and part of that is really the team fell from its grace and didn't quite have the funding of some of the giants that are in the sport today, the giants that I was a part of as well, for transparency. I was with Mercedes for 20 odd years in that organisation where we had the opportunity to win most. Now, the good thing is there's a line in the sand. We've been taken over by an investment firm that is very serious on committing this team back to winning world championships. And the investment that we're doing is enormous. And the intention is very clear. It's for us to bring this giant back to winning ways in the sport. Now, we're on a good pathway, as I said before, but why did we fall back? Well, some of the facilities are just really not where they needed to be. I think, obviously, you need individuals that aspire to be a part of a winning organisation, and many of those were taken elsewhere. We weren't perhaps investing in the right areas. All of that now, the good news is we're on the right pathway going forward.
And this is at a time in which, everyone continues to do well as a sport. It's a competitive arena to be in the sense that, you only have to look at this summer, lots of sporting events around, whether it's the cricket, the Women's Euros we've just been talking about. What do you think the key to F1's success has been and continues to be in terms of being a business fundamentally?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I've been a part of it for 25 years, and being transparent, there was a time not that far ago, 6 to 10 years ago, where it was difficult to survive, and that's the reality behind it, and Williams was surviving. What's changed? First of all, Liberty have done a brilliant job. I think we've turned ourselves into a proper sport and entertainment for the world. I think we now have 10, going 11 next year, teams that are all investing at the right level to effectively be a dominant part of the force of Formula One. We have, you mentioned it a few minutes ago, the F1 movie, which is just this star-studded lineup that will, I hope anyway, show and demonstrate a little bit of our world to everyone else. We have Netflix, and Netflix really became another beacon for us to demonstrate that it's a team sport. In a really weird way, I know you've got 2 racing drivers out on the track fighting each other, but the reality is, if I take Williams, we've got 1,100 employees behind the scenes. So it's this massive team sport where you're continuously developing the car. And I think what we've been able to do is to draw in individuals to understand that there's a huge human element behind it. And by the way, if you want to come and join it, we'll show you a little bit behind the scenes. And I think what we're really understanding now is that the sport that we have, it's really important to understand there's characters in a part of it, and we've grown in that way to a different audience.
OK, James, we really appreciate your time this afternoon. Good luck with the new contract and with getting Williams back, as I say, at the front of the grids. We really appreciate your time here on Sky News.
Thank you so much.
James Vows there. Thank you.